Welcome back to Sim Sunday and the last in our Interesting Approaches series, which if all goes well is going to take us smoothly into the next series we're calling Bucket Spade, where the real Airbus pilot and I do our best to recreate in Flight Sim some of the most popular routes in the Northern Hemisphere, as the hard-working people of Europe and North America flock south every summer to enjoy a week or two's relaxation on a beach somewhere in the Mediterranean, the Canary Islands, the Gulf of Mexico, and even the Caribbean. So we're ending our Interesting Approaches series back in Munich. If you watched the last video, you would have seen me take the Aerosoft Airbus A321 in Lufthansa livery from Munich down to Dubrovnik. However, in this video, we're back in the hands of the professional, because the real Airbus pilot is planning to take you on a leisure flight between Munich and Bavaria and the Greek island of Skiathos. And he's making this flight in XPlane 11 using the Flight Factor Boeing 757-200 in the livery of Condor. Some of you may also recognise this livery from Thomas Cook, who sadly went out of business in 2019. However, the German subsidiary Condor was rescued and lives on today as a German leisure airline. As you can see, the real Airbus pilot has just completed his pushback and he's currently undergoing his pre-taxi checklist before requesting clearance to taxi to the active runway, which today is 26 left. And if you'd watched the last video where I flew the Aerosoft A329 from here in Munich down to Dubrovnik, you would know that 26 left was the runway that I was issued for departure as well. I'm going to shut up now and allow the real Airbus pilot to taxi this Flight Factor Boeing 757-200 to the active runway and depart en route to Skiathos. And of course, I will come back a little later and explain why the approach into Skiathos is so interesting.
Tower, Condor 228.
Condor 228, fly heading 130, runway 26 left. You're cleared for takeoff. Condor 228, contact center on 135.95.
And there you go, another textbook departure at the hands of the real Airbus pilot in the Flight Factor Boeing 757-200. For those of you, like me, who are not familiar with XPlane, you might have been wondering what the white shimmering lines were on the taxiways and the runway. Well, that was XPlane's attempt to deliver some snow into the virtual experience. Yet, what I learnt a few years ago when I was looking to move from FSX to a 64-bit flight sim, XPlane doesn't deliver seasonal variations within its weather engine, or certainly not in the out-of-the-box platform. However, looking at XPlane, I would state now that the out-of-the-box scenery looks much better than the out-of-box scenery that you would get in Prepared. And the real Airbus pilot tells me that the flight physics engine in XPlane is decades more superior than that of Prepared. And I guess, like everything in life, there are pros and cons in choosing XPlane ahead of Prepared or vice versa. Okay, looking at the Jeppesen charts for Skiathos, the real Airbus pilot will be making his approach into runway 20. There is only an NDB approach and no ILS, and the runway is only a little over 5,000 feet long. And in this approach, the real Airbus pilot is going to prove that a smooth landing is always not a good landing, and a hard landing, yes guys, can be a good landing. The biggest challenge at Skiathos is both the length and the width of the runway. So the priority at this tricky little Mediterranean airport is to get the aircraft on the ground without running off the end of the runway. So following the published approach to touchdown within the structural limits of the Boeing 757 far outweighs the requirement to grease the landing. Right, it's time for me to be quiet again while we enjoy watching the skills of a professional pilot put this Flight Factor Boeing 757 on the ground at Skiathos in XPlane 11.
Condor 228, runway 20, you're clear to land.
Runway 20, Condor 228.
$500.
The real Airbus pilot was telling me that the trick to making a smooth as possible landing here at Skiathos was to keep the autopilot engaged, allowing the aircraft to settle down to a stable final approach and waiting to disengage the autopilot upon selecting the flaps to full. He did say that the virtual passengers would probably have felt this being a pretty hard landing, but to me it did look pretty darn good. And I can say the same for this excellent out-of-the-box scenery that you get in XPlane. I've never been to Skiathos in prepared, and I certainly don't own any add-on scenery, so I can only assume it would be pretty poor compared to what you're seeing here in XPlane. Anyway, as the real Airbus pilot back taxis this Flight Factor Boeing 757 to the terminal, it is time to bring this episode of Sim Sunday to an end. And as I said at the beginning of this video, it is also the end of our Interesting Approaches series. The next how many videos are going to be in our Bucket and Spade series, where we attempt to create real-world leisure flights in prepared and XPlane. So until the next video, the real Airbus pilot and I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time to watch this short video. And until the next episode, when I attempt to fly a low-cost US airline from Florida down to the Caribbean, thanks for watching. And wherever you fly next in your virtual world, safe flying.